Κύριε Πρόεδρε της Δημοκρατίας, κυρίες και κύριοι.
President of the Hellenic Republic, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the sixth ceremony for Empress Theophano Prize Award. My name is Apostolos Vangeriadis. I'm a journalist and presenter at ERT, and I'm from Thessaloniki. So I'd like to welcome you to Rotunda, this multicultural historic building. In the framework of this noble initiative that linked the East and the West of the 10th century, and at a time of turmoil and tension, would like to highlight the hope and bridging gaps. Would like to shed light to the future from our past, and we want this prize to be a guide for a better future and tomorrow. The foundation of Empress Theophano institutionalized this idea in order to reinforce the modern European idea and how it can contribute to bridging gaps between people, nations, and ideologies. Ever since the prize started in 2019, this initiative expresses the explicit and imperative need for deepening of the common European consciousness and the principles that define the common good. In the 5-year of its presence, the Theophano Foundation has presented the award to important initiatives and individuals. So let us watch a short video in order to remember what happened in the previous years and the previous award ceremonies. This year, the award and prize focuses on connective Strength, cultural heritage, the present and the future of Europe. Rotunda symbolizes exactly that, the continuity and everlasting character of cultural heritage and the sense of belonging, to a sense of referring to our Europe. These ideas are being supported by Europa Nostra since 1963. And Europa Nostra is being awarded the Empress Theophano Prize these years. Europa Nostra highlights the vital importance of heritage for politics, economy, culture, environment, and the well-being, as well as the future of the whole of Europe. It reminds us of our responsibility to convey this heritage to the future generations. So I would like to call to the floor His Excellency, the President of the Hellenic Republic, Konstantinos Tassoulas, to briefly greet the audience. President, Chairman of the Governing Council, Chairman of the Advisory Council, Mr. Mayor, Ministers, ladies and gentlemen. It is with great pleasure that I'm here today at this historic site of Rotunda, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, on the occasion of the Empress Theophano Award ceremony. An award that aims to highlight and reward distinct personalities and initiatives from the fields of art, science, education, entrepreneurship, sports, and humanitarian action. An award that not only highlights excellence in a particular field, but also rewards the promotion of timeless European and global values such as humanity, solidarity, mutual understanding. Values particularly valuable and precious at the current juncture, characterized by geopolitical upheavals, armed conflicts, instability, and uncertainty, as well as questioning of multilateralism, international law, and global security architecture as built after the Second World War and have been lasting for decades. These values are necessary to address humanity's great challenges, such as climate change or better climate crisis, inequalities, artificial intelligence, immigration. In this era, there is a need for bridges of dialogue, cooperation, and unity that will overcome contradictions and prove that the bonds that unite peoples, and countries and nations are more than the differences that divide them. This is, after all, the goal of the Theophano Awards, as we have all watched the short video earlier. These awards, Theophano Awards, were established 6 years ago and have already consolidated their presence and highlighted their value and prestige in the European scene, but also beyond. At this point, I would like to express my warm congratulations to the chairman of the Theophano Foundation, Mr. Stavros Andreadis, who undertook this initiative in 2019 with a vision to strengthen the ties between European countries through the promotion of their common cultural and historical origins. I would also like to congratulate the chairman of the Advisory Council, Mr. Herman van Rompuy, and its members for their always valuable nominations. The presentation of this award could not be hosted in a more emblematic and iconic site than the Rotunda, a monument that testifies to the history of the city of Thessaloniki through the successive transformations and interventions that occurred during the Roman, early Christian, Byzantine, and Ottoman periods, but recently during the 20th century. And of course, the name of the awards could not have a better symbolism than the Empress Theophano, who was a symbol of union between East and West, passing on the rich culture of Byzantium to Western Europe in the 10th century. 6 centuries before that, we have the transfer of the name of Rome to the east. Before that, so we can see the successive change from east to west. Rome started to be collapsing. Constantinos foresaw that the roof would fall on him, left Italy, took the name of Rome and transfers it and moves it to Byzantium as if it was a simple suitcase, as Panagiotis Angelopoulos wrote in his emblematic work, The History of the European Nation. So the East from the West separated and its windows opened to receive the violent streams from the north. The West went close to the north. And the Celts and the German tribes occupied the West. But did the West alienate itself totally from the East? No. Constantine the Great not only sacrificed the West, but freed it. The sacrifice was made on a new altar. Constantinus saw that the catacombs had eaten the foundations of the old world, took the catacombs and raised them to the light. Constantinus saved the Roman state by transferring from the west to the east, but he liberated the west by taking the god that had risen in the east and placed him in the east and the west all over. So the west not only remained free to become one with the north, with the new blood, but it also embraced the better and sweeter sprout of the east, Jesus Christ. And so a rare opportunity was given to the Western civilization to deepen in richer lands. The birth and the essence of the European world cannot be understood if we don't recall the Greek ancient spirit, the Roman spirit, Christianity, and the flourishing blood of the peoples of the north. The ancient Greek spirit gave to the Western world the objective measures of the beauty, the good, and the truth. The Roman state legislation gave the concept of organized state and systematized law. The Romans, of course, offered many other things that go back to the Greek offer that they processed. Christianity gave love and faith and gave to European people the objective kind soul. The North people gave the active blood and children imagination, where in the wild forest of the North became alive. As you know, and as we have heard, the Theophano Foundation decided to award this year's prize to the Europa Nostra organization in recognition of its long-standing contribution to the protection, conservation, and promotion of European cultural heritage. This cultural heritage has its origins in ancient Greece. According to mythology, Europe Nostra was the mother of Minos, and by extension of Minoan civilization, one of the oldest civilizations in the Mediterranean, which influenced and shaped all those that followed. Europa Nostra, being the largest network of NGOs and institutions in the field of art and culture in Europe, has been contributing for 6 decades, since 1963, to the protection and promotion of Europe's cultural heritage as a fundamental element of European identity. Hundreds of organizations from 47 European countries participate in this pan-European federation of organizations with the common goal of preserving Europe's cultural heritage. In our country, Europa Nostra has developed a variety of activities. In close cooperation with cultural institutions, it promotes actions that contribute to the sustainable management of cultural goods through projects for the restoration of historic buildings, the protection of landscapes, the exchange of know-how, awareness raising, and the participation of local communities in the protection of our cultural heritage. Therefore, the importance of the organization's work that is being awarded today goes beyond the cultural dimension, because it has a significant social and economic impact by promoting and strengthening education, social cohesion, tourism, and the development of local communities. Among the actions of the organization is its initiative called the 7 Most Endangered, which aims to highlight monuments, projects, or landscapes that are in danger of either being altered or even lost. This year, the castle city of Monemvasia has joined this program, while in the past, the Aegean Islands, among others, the islands of Sifnos, Seriphos, and Folegadros, were also part of this project, as well as the old town of Kastoria and the plain of the island of Chios. The multi-annual and multifaceted work of Europa Nostra not only contributes to the protection of monuments, buildings, works of art, and natural landscapes that make up Europe's cultural wealth, but also defends the intangible values of cooperation, cultural diversity, solidarity, tolerance, and sustainable development. For their contribution to the preservation of fundamental European principles and values, but also for the promotion of a common European consciousness that can be a solid foundation for the further strengthening and deepening of the ties between the European peoples, I would like to express my warmest congratulations to the Executive Chairman of the organization, Professor Dr. Herman Parchinger, and the Secretary General, Mrs. Snezhka Mikhailovich, who are here tonight to receive the prize. I would like to wish the Theophano Awards to continue being the beacon that will illuminate the common cultural origins of the European countries, but also their common future as a single space of cultural interaction, solidarity, and peaceful coexistence. In conclusion, I'd like to say that the values of democracy and solidarity, and mainly the values of fertile interaction among cultures and civilizations, is what make Europe unique. It is these values that will allow Europe to overcome challenges and to fulfill its historic mission at a world that is contradictory. In this Europe, Greece can only have a central role to play, as it always had and will always have, not only as a member of the Union, but as a starting point of the very same European idea. The founding act of the European Union lies and stems from ancient Greece. And since we are awarding the guardian of our cultural heritage. Let's not forget that dialogue and composition of ideas, synthesis of ideas is the future for safety. The objective measures of the beauty, the good, and the truth, which were given to the modern world by the ancient world, is our steady compass to the future. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. The Theophano Foundation was born in the heart of Europe and was embraced and supported by a group of people from our city, the city of Thessaloniki. This idea, in the short course of 6 years, has been turned into a very strong institution headquartered in this city and conveys the spirit of Europe to Greece. And at the same time, it radiates the central role of our country to the world. The members of Theophano Foundations are the driving force of this initiative. We'd like to thank them for this initiative all these years. I'd like to call to the floor Mr. Stavros Andreadis, the chairman of the Governing Council of Theophano Foundation. Your Excellency, President of the Hellenic Republic, dear ministers, dear mayor, distinguished guests of ours from all over Europe who came here today, especially for this award ceremony, representatives of so many different countries, members of a global society. Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, I'd like to welcome you with great emotion and a sense of honor to this year's 6th award of the Empress Theophano Prize. As I'm standing in this position, I cannot help but think of the history of this noble initiative, the important cause of these first 5 years of the prize, with all its weighty importance and perspective for the future. In my opinion, it was from the very first moment a brilliant international initiative that was born in the heart of Europe, a thought of the visionary, the Philhellene, the humanist and wise, a thought of our dear friend Hermann von Rompuy. In a world of social and political challenges, in a world of contradictions that are considered irreconcilable and insurmountable, an idea was born, the idea of a prize aiming to highlight hope, a prize that highlights the positive, common European and universal values as they are embodied through the action of individuals or organizations. Theophano, an empress who thousands of years ago linked the Byzantine and Roman empires, the east and the west of the 10th century, was chosen as a symbol. That was a historical act of reconciliation, bridging cultural differences. The location chosen was Greece, the city of Thessaloniki, and this unique monument of multicultural references, the Rotunda, the Pantheon of the East, a site where I feel the history stemming from everywhere, every time I visited. From the very first moment, we've seen this idea bridging together leading personalities from every corner of Europe, leading representatives of politics, diplomacy, science, literature, and culture, who make up today the advisory and governing councils of the prize. Would like to thank them for all these years because as a common voice of Europe, they've been highlighting humanism, solidarity, understanding, cohesion and reconciliation, bridging contrasts through the awards. In these turbulent times of global uncertainty, fanatism, brutal violence, and bloodshed that we have been experiencing and we have been addicted because it is a TV show, Europe must stand up. And this will not be done only by its politicians, but by the European peoples themselves. In other words, by us who are here in this hall today. Ladies and gentlemen, as I've mentioned before, the Empress Theophano Prize has recorded in just 5 years of its existence a spectacular course of pan-European recognition. However, it can achieve much more. Our ambition is every year standing here at the most southeastern edge of Europe to raise a common European strong voice which will promote and reward moral principles, values and ideas. On behalf of the 6 people who have supported it from the very beginning, Vangelis Gerovasiliou, Kostas Gleoudis, Nikos Epthimiadis, Giorgos Milonas, Vassos Konstantinidis and Doris Economou, I would like to invite you all to stand by this effort. This year's award is for our Europe, Europa Nostra in Latin. Europa Nostra, the voice of European civil society for cultural heritage, has been highlighting the importance of preserving and promoting European cultural heritage as a fundamental pillar of unity, identity, cultural cohesion of European societies, and sustainable development of Europe for 60 years. What could be the common point among the restoration of the roof of the Church of St. Moritz in Spiez and Dano in Austria, the restoration of the historic Venetian house Campone 1615 on Naxos, the Amlalax weaving art project in Coimbra, Portugal, and the preservation of the agricultural heritage of Greenland? They are awarded by Europa Nostra projects in the fields of research, conservation, education, and public awareness, while at the same time they are points of reference of our European cultural identity and a source of social power for modern Europe. And Europa Nostra achieved the miraculous. With a strong voice, it has managed to highlight issues and ultimately the wealth and beauty of European culture through its network of members, a real synthesis of civil society. That is more than 300 organizations and bodies, including the municipality of Thessaloniki, but also 1,500 individual members, with an indirect combined appeal to over 5 million people from 46 different countries. Awarding the prize to Europa Nostra goes beyond the individual, the local, the national, and makes us realize that we are part of a broader whole, a European heritage, namely Europa Nostra, our Europe. Dear Professor Parchinger, dear Mrs. Snetska Mihailovic, thank you so much for underscoring this inherent strength of cultural heritage for our identity all these years. As you have mentioned, Mr. Parziger, Europe's cultural heritage is a vast, multifaceted mosaic showing who we were, who we are, and who we aspire to be. We are all responsible for this huge legacy, which is precious but also fragile. Welcome, therefore, to this city that is itself a mosaic of European identity. Welcome to this monument that embodies in its history the Roman, Byzantine, Orthodox, Ottoman, and Greek influence, reflecting historically the multicultural influences of Europe. We would like to congratulate you once again for your excellent work, and we wish you from the bottom of our hearts to continue with the same inspiration, the same sensitivity, and the same passion. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Andreadis. Excellent personalities from Europe, from politics, diplomacy, science, and culture have embraced the idea of this prize that showcase the hope for Europe. The Advisory Council of Theophano Foundation consists of people who put forward these global values, the Europe that everybody's been envisioning. Through their participation, they give even more prestige to this venture that has Europe on its core. I'd like to call to the floor Mr. Herman von Rompuy, who is the chairman of the Advisory Council, and after 6 years, I can call him a citizen of Thessaloniki.
Mr. President of the Hellenic Republic, Mr. Chairman of the Governing Council and dear Stavros, Mr. Executive President of Europa Nostra, Madam Secretary General, Ministers, Mayors, colleagues of the Advisory Council and the Governing Council, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, and even dear friends. I believe that Europa Nostra was destined to receive the Theophano Prize now that we are gathered here in the Rotunda. This building is an expression of the culture and craftsmanship of 2000 years ago, and a symbol of European civilization throughout the ages until today. The Theophano Foundation's mission is to embody this idea of reconciliation and connection, and to honor people and organizations engaged in that endeavor. They are European role models. And the very name Europa Nostra, our Europe in Latin, conveys not only an idea, but also an emotion. It is about our Europe, a kind of European patriotism, a pride in our identity. In the case of Europa Nostra, it is an identity as reflected in monuments, in landscapes and initiatives by people who are committed to our culture. It's about connecting generations, connecting people who lived and live on our continent by passing on our heritage as a legacy to future generations. In that sense, we are part of a whole. Each generation is unique, and yet we recognize that we are part and serve something that transcends us as individuals and as peoples. Ultimately, the essence of our European culture revolves around humanity. Or as the Roman playwright Terentius once put it, I'm human, and nothing human is alien to me. Of course, it is an ideal. This is how we want to be, even though we have often failed in our history. But that too is human. Nevertheless, we must continue to cherish that great ideal, and that is the core of Europa Nostra's message. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, culture is ultimately about values, but is also about beauty, how that humanity is translated into art and craft. We are moved and inspired by buildings, by churches, by stories, by music, by paintings and sculptures that express how people are and how we hope they will be. Some will say that there is not one European culture, but many cultures. Of course, there is diversity, but there is also unity. And it is precisely the value of each unique human person that is the binding force. A person is much more than an individual. A person does not live alone, but with and for others. Christianity and the Enlightenment found common ground here. The inspiration is different, but the goal is the same. The Theophano Prize is a special prize. It aims to be a prize with a mission to celebrate people and organizations that bring more humanity and cooperation to Europe and mankind in a world in turmoil. Europa Nostra fits perfectly into our own mission statement as a Theophano Foundation. The world we live in is marked by oppositions that are quickly seen as irreconcilable and unsurmountable. While society needs cooperation, bridge building, and reconciliation among people, among generations, countries, philosophies, and religions. In short, there is a need for positive values full of humanity. It is also the only way to give hope, that magic word, hope. We must remember that this in a world and in a Europe where there is much fear and despair. The Theophano Prize aims to honor precisely those people and organizations that embody this hope. The name of the prize refers, it is already said, to Empress Theophano, who 1,000 years ago, as a princess from the Eastern Roman Empire, married the future emperor of the Western European Empire. At the time, this was an incredibly courageous act of reconciliation, bridging cultural differences. After her husband's death, this Byzantine princess ruled for several years of what we would call today Germany. The prize named after her has honored in succession the European Commission's Erasmus program, which enabled 15 million young Europeans to study in a country other than their own so that they could become real Europeans. Our second laureate was the Turkish-German couple Sahin Tureci, who developed the most successful COVID vaccine, saving millions of lives. The third one was David Barenboim's Jewish-Palestinian Orchestra. The fourth was the United Nations, when it was able to transport grain to poor countries at the start of the war in Ukraine. Last year, Special Olympics, which enabled people with mental disabilities worldwide to participate in sports and develop their own talents. And of course today, Europa Nostra, which cares for our heritage and makes us proud to be Europeans. Ladies and gentlemen, we all need a place where we feel at home, and at the same time, we need a space to give us a broader perspective. Europe is that place, or is that space. The combination of both gives the feeling that we are together in the same boat. Europa Nostra is a pan-European organization which brings together civil society organizations active in all countries of the Council of Europe. Its membership and outreach are therefore broader than the present-day European Union. However, it can count on the active support of the European Commission and other EU-related institutions. It relies heavily on private initiatives and countless volunteers. Europa Nostra is an umbrella organization with a dynamic base. Its members in the 50 countries share the same drive and the same values. And here too, there is unity in diversity. Europa Nostra has been created, it's already said, in 1963, which is a very young organization compared to the heritage it promotes and protects. Anyone who consults its publications will see that it also takes monuments under its protection that do not yet have the recognition they deserve, especially those located in small countries and remote areas. Europa Nostra itself presents awards, but today it is their turn to be honored, along with all those who make Europa Nostra what it is today. It does not want to be a museum catalogue. It wants to connect the old and the new, nova et vetera. Tomorrow's heritage is being created today, and without today's initiatives, there will be no heritage tomorrow. Europa Nostra does not need the Theophano Prize to establish its reputation. The Theophano Foundation needs Europa Nostra to enhance its reputation and its prestige. The leaders and supporters of Europa Nostra should feel at home in this rotunda, in this city so deeply marked by tragedy and by glory. Located at the geographical periphery of Europe, but situated at the heart of European culture. We want to make Europe great, not by making others small, but by trying to show and to be the best version of ourselves. We are gathering here for the 6th time to celebrate a prize winner. We can do this even though not far from here, wars are being waged where humanity and compassion are far away. The European Union has brought peace to at least 450 million people. Only in peace can monuments, landscape, and human creations of all kinds be preserved and promoted. In wars, people and monuments are destroyed. Let us do everything we can to preserve and promote peace, peace in justice and peace in freedom. Peace, ladies and gentlemen, peace is our greatest monument. The Theophano Foundation has no other goal, has no other idea. Thank you so much.
At this point, I would like to welcome His Excellency, the President of the Hellenic Republic, and Mr. Andreanthis and Mr. Herman van Rompuy for presenting the award. And I would like to call Mr. Herman Partagan and Mrs. Neshka Mihailovic to come to receive the award. The president of Europa Nostra, globally renowned mezzo-soprano Cecilia Bartoli sent us a message, a video message.
Je suis tellement triste de ne pas être là ce soir avec vous. Mais croyez-moi, je suis avec vous de tout cœur et de tout pensée. Chers amis, depuis 80 ans, nous avançons ensemble dans cette belle aventure européenne. Et aujourd'hui, à ce moment si important de notre histoire commune, une question s'impose. Qu'est-ce qui nous unit vraiment? Qu'est-ce qui nourrit nos inspirations, nos élans, nos forces vives pour bâtir l'avenir? La réponse, vous la connaissez, c'est la culture. C'est notre patrimoine. Rien ne rapproche davantage les Européens que ce trésor partagé. Un patrimoine qui reflète nos identités et qui est surtout une source inépuisable de créativité. Cette année, quelle émotion! Notre action a été récompensée par le prix de l'impératrice Theophano. Je veux rendre hommage à toutes celles et ceux qui, depuis 60 ans, ont porté et nourri l'action d'Europa Nostra. Vous êtes si nombreux. Cette distinction, elle est à vous, elle est pour vous. Et maintenant, chers amis, je compte sur vous pour continuer avec enthousiasme et conviction cette noble mission au service de la beauté, du dialogue et de l'harmonie dans notre société. Avec toute mon amitié et ma gratitude. Merci. Grazie. Arrivederci.
And now I would like to call to the floor the Executive President of Europa Nostra, Mr. Parchinger, to come to the floor, and then the Secretary, Ms. Jesna Mihailovic.
Your Excellency, Mr. President of the Hellenic Republic, Excellencies, Ministers, Mayors, distinguished members and distinguished chairman of the Empress Theophano Foundation, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends. Kalispera sas, Kalispera Zeolus. Good evening to all of you. It is a profound honor and a deeply moving experience to stand here beneath the dome of this magnificent rotunda in Thessaloniki, to accept the Empress Theophano Prize 2025 on behalf of Europa Nostra, the European voice of civil society committed to protecting and celebrating our shared cultural heritage. In this awe-inspiring place, where stone, mosaic, and light intertwine, we feel the presence of many Europes at once. Built as a Roman imperial shrine, transformed into a Byzantine church, later a mosque, and now a monument open to all humanity. The rotunda embodies the very essence of Europe, multi-layered, diverse, resilient. Its walls have witnessed empires rise and fall, faiths change, people come and go, yet the rotunda remains. It teaches us that Europe is not a single story, but a symphony of many voices. It reminds us that what endures is not the power of conquer, but the power to connect. How fitting that we gather here tonight in a circle, both literal and symbolic, the eternal shape of dialogue, to celebrate those who build bridges between cultures and generations. The woman whose name graces this prize, Empress Theophano, we heard already about her, was herself a bridge between worlds. Born in Constantinople, the jewel of Byzantium, she journeyed across seas and cultures to become Empress of the Holy Roman Empire of the German nation. As we heard, she was married to the Emperor Otto II. She reminds us that Europe's unity has always depended on dialogue between its differences, between North and South, East and West, past and future. To receive an award in her name is therefore not just a recognition, it's a calling. A reminder that we too must be bridge builders in our time. For over 60 years, Europa Nostra has been guided by the same conviction. We are a movement of citizens, experts, and volunteers from more than 40 countries all over Europe and beyond, working to safeguard Europe's cultural and natural heritage in all its diversity. We speak for those who believe that cultural heritage is not a luxury, but a necessity, a source of identity, creativity, and resilience. From restoring historic buildings to reviving traditional crafts, from empowering local communities to shaping European policy, from adding scent to our historic perception, from teaching children about the importance of heritage, we have worked to make heritage a living force for good. Our work is grounded in partnership with the European Union, the European Commission, the Council of Europe, the European Investment Bank Institute, and countless local and regional initiatives. But most of all, it is grounded in people, in the passion of those who refuse to let beauty and memory fade away. Heritage is a living force, and heritage gives hope. When a community in Ukraine protects its monuments under bombardment, when a derelict industrial site in Portugal becomes a hub for innovation, when young people in the Balkans rediscover their shared cultural roots, we witness the quiet power of heritage to heal and to unite. Heritage is not about nostalgia, it is about belonging. It is about understanding that every stone, every melody, every story handed down to us carries a message of resilience and a promise to future generations. We also know, however, that Europe's heritage is fragile. It faces threats from war and neglect, from climate crisis and mass tourism, from populist and extremist political movements, and from short-term economic pressure that too often ignore the long-term value of culture. In too many places, we see history erased in the name of progress, or beauty sacrificed to expedience. But to lose our heritage is to lose our compass, the very map that tells us who we are and where we come from. In too many places, Europa Nostra exists to resist that loss, to be a guardian of memory, a promoter of excellence, and a voice of cultural democracy. We believe that climate action and cultural heritage must walk hand in hand, that the green transition must also be a cultural transmission. We believe that social justice and cultural justice are inseparable. The access to culture is a human right, not a privilege. And we believe that heritage and democracy depend on each other because a people that forgets its history can too easily forget its freedom. Our continent finds itself in a double challenge, which needs to meet urgently. These challenges are not only external, they also come from the inside, faced with a much more fragile world and the uncertainties that go with it. A growing part of our European population is tempted by populist and extremist parties that intend to destroy what we have built together. Europe must reinvent the means to recapture the interest and the support of its citizens. On the external side, Europe must rethink its place and its role by defining a new vision which encompasses and reinforces its security on all fronts. In time of conflict and confrontation, culture and heritage are more important than ever. And these inner and external challenges are closely interlinked, and that's where culture and heritage has a role to play. Culture and heritage are what links Europeans together. They are the essence of our common values and our shared identity. So tonight, it's a moment to celebrate, but it's also a moment to reflect. The Empress Theophano Prize celebrates not only what Europe has inherited, but what it can still become. It reminds us that Europe is more than a political or economic project. It is a cultural and moral one. Thessaloniki, this radiant city by the sea, has always been a meeting point of civilizations: Hellenic, Roman, Byzantine, Ottoman, Jewish, Balkan, Mediterranean. Its streets, its architecture, its spirit reminds us that Europe's richness lies in its plurality. And the Rotunda stands at the heart of the city as a silent witness to the truth. And tonight, beneath this dome, we too bear witness to the power of culture to transcend time, to the duty of remembrance, and to the joy of shared humanity. Thousands of people all over Europe, in every community, in every town and village, engage in heritage. People work tirelessly, often without pay, to save and preserve our heritage. What is it that moves thousands of people to do this? The answer is obvious, because heritage matters. Heritage matters for communities. Heritage matters for economy. Heritage matters for democracy. Heritage matters for Europe and for the Europeans. This is why we applaud and support so much the European Commission's project of a European cultural compass. And that is why we, Europa Nostra, are proud to play our part as a leading force in the European Cultural Heritage Hub project. Mr. President, allow me to express my deepest admiration for Greece, the host of this remarkable ceremony. To speak about Europe without speaking of Greece is to speak without a beginning, in a way. Here in this land, democracy was born. Here, philosophy taught us to question. Poetry taught us to feel. And architecture taught us to aspire. Here, the word Europe itself took first shape. For Europa Nostra, Greece has always been more than a partner. Greece has been a compass. Organizations like Elliniki Eteria or heritage heroes like Costa Carras we deeply admire. So tonight, as we celebrate in the Rotunda, we also want to pay tribute to the Hellenic spirit that continues to inspire the best of Europe. This prize, so given to Europa Nostra, truly belongs to all who care for Europe's cultural soul, to the artisans who restore broken mosaics, the conservators who work in silence and patience, the volunteers who protect their village monuments, the teachers who make history become alive, and the young people who bring new meanings to old places. To them, and to all who believe that beauty, truth, and memory still matter, we want to dedicate this award too. As I look around in this sacred space, I am reminded that the Rotunda's dome once symbolized the heavens. Under it, generations of Europeans have prayed, dreamed, and created. Today, we gather under the same dome, not divided by creed or empire, but united in gratitude for the heritage we share. Let us too be a kind of rotunda for our time, open to all, strong in our foundations, circular in our remembrance. Let us remember what truly unites Europe is not the uniformity of our markets, but the diversity of our memories. Not the might of our armies, but the imagination of our artists. Not the force of our wealth, but the force of our values. Mr. President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Europa Nostra, I want to accept the Empress Theophano Prize 2025 with deep humility and heartfelt gratitude. May it inspire us to continue our mission to protect, to cherish, and to transmit the treasures of Europe's cultural heritage. May it remind us that heritage is not about the past, it is about the future which we wish to build together. From this eternal city of Thessaloniki, under this dome that has seen 17 centuries of change, let us send us a message of hope that Europe's greatest monuments are not only built of marble, but of memory and solidarity. And I want to end with the words of the great Greek poet Yorgos Seferis, who knew both the pain and the promise of Europe. Let me quote him. Opokinata taxidepso I Elada me pligoni. Wherever I travel, Greece wounds me. This simple, yet haunting line expresses the poet's deep love for his homeland, a love so profound that it becomes a kind of gentle pain. It reminds us that to truly love a place, a culture, or a continent, it is to feel both, the beauty and its burden, and to carry them with responsibility and care. Maybe too, carry Europe in that spirit, not as a possession, but as a promise, not as a wound to lament, but as a gift to protect. Thank you very much.
Mr. President of the Hellenic Republic, Mr. Chairs and members of the Governing Board and the Advisory Council of the Theophano Foundation, ministers, Mr. Mayor, Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends. What an evening, what a place, what a company, what a prize, and what an honor for me to sing tonight a duet with Europa Nostra's Executive President on this unique heritage stage under the dome of Galerius Rotunda. As a woman who have had the privilege to steer the Europa Nostra ship for a quarter of a century, let me start by honoring the memory of Empress Theophano. More than 1,000 years ago, she became a symbol for enlightened female leadership, bridging the east and west of our Europe through culture, education, and diplomacy. As a person who was born and raised in a millennia-old city, Belgrade, it is a special emotion for me tonight to be in another millennia-old city, Thessaloniki, one of the greatest historic cities in this part of Europe, where lie the roots also of my own family. Tonight, I feel here the presence of my ancestors, just as I hear the voices and the music of different languages, cultures, religions that have left a mark on this majestic rotunda during the many centuries of its history. More than 30 years ago, I moved from Belgrade to The Hague to marry my Dutch husband. I did not know that only few months later a tragic war would start, causing so much suffering and the death of my country, Yugoslavia. At that moment, when I felt hopeless and helpless, watching in disbelief the shelling of the World Heritage City of Dubrovnik, I met Europa Nostra. Alas, I lost my native country, but through Europa Nostra, I was lucky to find a new one. From then on, I always perceived Europa Nostra's mission as an antidote to the poison of nationalism and any form of extremism, and its action as the most beautiful instrument to promote hope, beauty, the sense of togetherness in our Europe, and to celebrate the European dimension of these multi-layered identities that we have. Today, when Europe is again facing demons, old and new, this core mission and action of Europa Nostra is needed more than ever. We celebrate through the care for Europe's shared cultural heritage the very motto of the European Union, its unity in diversity, in varietate concordia. And tonight, let us affirm together, Europa Nostra and the Theophano Foundation, that our cultural heritage is not a mere ornament, but a fundament of our common European house. For more than 60 years, Europa Nostra has been championing these vital messages. And we have done this on many interconnected fronts. Already in 1978, we started promoting the power of example, of course, the positive example. We launched the Europa Nostra Awards, which gradually became the European Oscars for cultural heritage, since 2002 organized in partnership with the European Union. We honored and gave Europe-wide visibility to thousands of success stories in the field of conservation, adaptive reuse, research, education, training, citizens' engagement, and raising awareness. And all these examples offer living proof that Europe's shared heritage is not only about reviving our past, but about enlightening the path to our future. We also promote the power of solidarity. A prime example of such action is our 7 Most Endangered program. Mr. President, you refer to this program, organized with the support of the European Investment Bank Institute. When a heritage site of European importance is at risk, we need to speak up in solidarity with all those who are mobilized to save these sites. from a threatened monastery or mosque in the Balkans or in the Caucasus, to an abandoned industrial landmark in Belgium or in Finland, from a neglected thermal baths in Romania to the buffer zone of the still divided city of Nicosia, or to the priceless cultural landscapes of the Cyclades. Since 2003, we have thus adopted more than 70 sites in all parts of Europe. Many of those sites are today saved. Well, many more battles are still ahead of us, and they shall hopefully become our next success stories. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this evening we celebrate the power of heritage to bring Europe closer together. But we must be aware that our heritage is facing many threats in times of war and in times of peace. Speaking about the times of war, and many speakers, all speakers before me mentioned it, we must recall the tragic loss of so many heritage sites in Ukraine. We therefore applaud the creation only 3 days ago in Copenhagen of an international Ukraine Heritage Fund. And we call upon the European and international community to stand up in solidarity with heritage professionals and volunteers who risk their lives to save those cultural treasures. The same is true for the neighboring region of Middle East, where significant heritage sites with undeniable links with Europe's own history and heritage have been destroyed or damaged. Here, at the shores of the Aegean, we launch an appeal, and we do it together with our partners from Jordan. We launch an appeal for an ambitious cultural program under the motto Mare Nostrum, to build strong bridges through cultural heritage between Europe and the eastern and southern shores of the Mediterranean. But our heritage and our landscapes also face many threats in peacetime, because of the erosion of democracy and the rule of law, which are a precondition for ensuring proper safeguard of our heritage. Because of the climate change, which is already having devastating impact on our people and our land. Because too many businesses seek large profits above public benefits and protection of common good. In response to these serious threats which exist in all parts of Europe, we must forge a strong coalition with enlightened political and business leaders, city mayors, influencers from all walks of life. A coalition not against economic progress, but for prosperity, which is driven by cultural values and rights, and for well-being of the people and of our planet, based on the principles of sustainability and humanism. For such a coalition to grow, we need the power of persuasion. For 60 years, Europa Nostra has been active crafting the right arguments, mobilizing citizens and civil society, forging alliances, convincing decision makers. Gradually, we have persuaded the leaders, first of the Council of Europe and then also of the European Union, that heritage counts. Counts for jobs, for cohesion, for the environment, for climate action, for democracy, and for Europe's cultural leaderships across the globe. All these messages were included in the manifesto entitled Heritage Matters for Europe and Europe Matters for Heritage, which we have published today to coincide with this extraordinary moment when we are receiving the Empress Theophano Prize. Also globally, we must be part of the ever-growing mobilization for the recognition of culture and cultural heritage as the missing sustainable development goal. And we must champion the importance of a culture-based climate action, both at the UN and the EU levels. And we are pleased that the Greek government is one of our strongest allies in this field. Of course, our advocacy work relies on the power of our network and the immense power of civil society. From Santiago de Compostela to Lviv, from Oslo to Tbilisi, this pan-European network is our main strength and source of richness. Organizations and individuals, professionals and volunteers who share knowledge, passion, creative, innovative ideas. And some of them are heritage themselves, like our German vice president, who proudly informed us that 28 generations later, he is a direct descendant of the Empress Theophano, our mother Europe. Our newest venture, the European Heritage Hub, launched under the leadership of Europa Nostra and with the vital support of the European Parliament and the European Commission, is a perfect example of the growing transformational power of our network. We are especially proud of the creation of regional and city hubs across Europe, from Krakow to Athens, led by Eleni Taria, our country representation in Greece, and from Lisbon to Nicosia. And we are grateful for the support received from the mayors of these cities. And we are delighted to support the creation of future city hubs in Kiev, Yerevan, and Belgrade. In this way, we wish to contribute through the bridge-building power of heritage to the ongoing process of EU enlargement. To succeed, this process cannot focus on economy and security only. It must also be inspired and based on deeper understanding of our shared history and on better appreciation of our shared heritage. Let me finally praise the power of partnership and friendship. We could not have achieved what we have achieved without the competent, generous, and loyal support of an impressive pleiad of Europeans who have carried our mission and contributed in a voluntary capacity to our action over the last 6 decades. In Italy, France, the UK, Denmark, the Netherlands, Poland, Croatia, Bulgaria, and in all other countries of our Europe. Please allow me to pay tribute to all of them by invoking the memory of the legendary champion of the values of heritage and environment, Costa Karas. Not just because we are in Greece, but because he was the leading personality of Europa Nostra for almost 50 years. And he was, for me, like for any others in Europa Nostra, an unforgettable role model. And let me also thank warmly our closest partner organizations, like the Leventis Foundation or the European Union Youth Orchestra, who we are delighted will make this evening a musical tribute to Europe's cultural heritage. Together with them and with other partners from the wider cultural world, we forcefully advocate the need for a true cultural deal for Europe and a European deal for culture. And we are therefore grateful for the support received from so different cities, regions, and national governments from all over Europe, and of course to the European Union institutions who are today our main partner. And we are indebted to them all, to you all, and this prize is theirs and yours as well. Dear colleagues and friends, next week, the European Union will present its Cultural Compass for Europe, a strategic document which shall elevate the cultural purpose and ambitions of the European Union. Together with the Theophano Foundation and with so many of our members and partners, we must seize this unique opportunity to place culture and cultural heritage finally where they belong, at the very center of the European project. And let me end with the words of the eminent German diplomat and former rector of the College of Europe in Bruges, the late Otto von der Gablenz, who was executive president of Europa Nostra during the first years of the 21st century. He said, "The mission of Europa Nostra is to free European culture from having been taken hostage by the nation states, since European culture predates national culture and not the other way round." This vision forms Europa Nostra's own compass, a compass which is perfectly in tune with the compass of the Theophano Foundation. Let us continue to be guided by our compass together. Thank you.
Τόπος, χώρος.
Place and celebration. Music from 7 composers from 7 countries that celebrate the long course of Europa Nostra. These words describe briefly the music performance that is going to be on right now. This is a musical program of 7 pieces by European composers with the participation of 16 musicians from 8 different European countries. Young musicians from European Union Youth Orchestra. 3,000 candidates go through the audition every year in order to be chosen to take part in this orchestra. The orchestra has worked with legendary conductors like Claudio Bando, Dallin Barneboy, Bernstein, Karajan, and Ivan Fischer. It has performed in Carnegie Hall and many other halls, and it has been awarded several times. For more than 50 years, this orchestra is a cultural ambassador of the whole of Europe. Today, we have a small group of strings. Adivenia Quintilla Rave from Spain, Doja Merelli from Croatia and Italy, Mia Rubel from Estonia. In violas, Maria Coral Bellon from Spain, Marina Masado Campos from Portugal, Benedict Leclerc from France. In violoncella, Eva Sanchez Vencaso from Spain, Duve Isis from Holland, Damien Hogan from France. In contrabass, Severi Hudampa from Finland. Special guests, the distinguished Serbian flautist Ljubisa Jovanovic, and the excellent Greek lyra musician Socrates Sinopoulos, one of the most important interpreters of lyra worldwide, who will add his own improvisations. In trumpets, we have 3 young musicians from Moussa, that is the Thessaloniki Concert Hall Youth Symphony Orchestra. We had the pleasure to listen to them last year under Diamandi last year as a conductor. Images and visions of Rotunda Monument and other European places will be shown at the same time as our performers will be playing. The orchestra is asking the audience to give their applause at the end of all the pieces, at the very end of the performance. Let's all enjoy the show. Thank you.
Νομίζω θα συμφωνήσετε όλοι.
I believe that you will all agree we couldn't think of a better closing to this ceremony. We couldn't be just proud of the musical talents of Europe, these young people who remind us that the musical palette of our continent has no end, and it confirms the role and the reason for being of Europa Nostra. I would like to thank you all. And from Thessaloniki, the crossroads of cultures, we wish you a pleasant evening. Thank you very much.